Hey, this is Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, what a coincidence. Good to hear from you. What's going on in your world of immigration? Things seem bad.
Mostly just wanted to call to say, like, Kristi Noem's doing great. Everyone's doing awesome. ICE rules, and that's it.
Oh, that's not what we expected to hear from you.
Trying not to go to jail, right?
Yes. Well done.
Yeah, so...
Let me ask you this, because we just had an attorney on, and we were talking about this briefly, and then I want to get to what you were talking about. How much concern is there within the immigration lawyer, immigration attorney community? Is there? I mean, I know you are not the only immigration attorney I know, and most of them are, maybe they'll have a small firm or they're a single practitioner, obviously, and they don't necessarily have the resources to worry about, getting sanctioned or going to jail. What is it like? What's the level of anxiety amongst not only immigrants but immigration attorneys?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty high. I mean, people are just amongst, like, my friends and stuff, wondering, like, do we need to have plans to not live in this country? Sort of having those types of discussions. And it seems, on the one hand, hyperbolic, and then on the other hand, like, maybe not. I mean, I don't know if you remember during the first Trump administration, they charged this guy with alien harboring because he was leaving water in the desert.
Yes.
And so the alien harboring statute is very broad, and they've, the idea that they would try and exploit it doesn't seem fantastical anymore. I think they would likely do something what they've done with these larger law firms, go after a couple big names or whatever. I mean, obviously, I'm really pro ICE, and so I don't think I'm a huge target because I think they're, like, awesome and sick at their jobs.
Right. Well known.
But like other well known, I'm pretty much, like, famous for that. But
I was going to say thank you for that pro ICE swag you sent us. That was very sweet of you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to promote awareness about, like, how much they rule and are awesome at doing, ICE stuff. But no, I mean, it is concerning. And I mean, honestly, like, one of the other big problems is that just even after the election, a lot of attorneys were saying, like, I'm done doing removal defense. It's too stressful. I'm burnt out. I can't handle the uncertainty of it all. And so a lot of people were already sort of tapping out of, the most sort of taxing part of the job. And so right now, with detentions being ramped up and everything, it's hard to even find a lawyer. So that's one of the big problems. I wanted to talk a little bit about gangs, I guess.
Yeah.
And, everything that's going on with that. One thing that's hard is that gang membership can be, I know there's, like, formal ways to be jumped into a gang. There's ways to, like, definitely be part of a gang, but there's also a lot of people who maybe from ages like 14 to 18, because of where they live or because of their family or, whatever the circumstances, they just have, like, a lot of friends that are in gangs.
Yes. Reagan, I'm not sure if you listened to the beginning of the show, but I was talking about this a little bit. Basically, the usage of tactics that have been used on folks in this country, oftentimes Black people, where you're put into gang databases and Black people and people of color are disproportionately represented. It's really difficult to get off of them. It's very obscure as to how you get on them at all. And it's usually just used to elevate charges against younger men who are either Black or Latino or whatever to further mass incarceration. And this is now just being used to deport people without due process.
Right. Yeah. So it's a real problem, and and even just, the process of trying to rehabilitate somebody who has had serious gang affiliation. I mean, that, like you're saying, that sort of sticks with them, forever. And then there's all kinds of other complicated issues, like the fact that prison basically is like a gang culture. So there are people who go to prison and maybe they've been in a gang and they would really like to not be, but the very first thing that they have to do when they get into prison is prove loyalty to like one gang or the other. Like, I've heard this story a million times. And
right.
So the first thing they're told when they get to prison is, you can stab someone or we'll stab you. And you need to show us, like, right this second, you've got 5 minutes to do this, who you're rolling with or whatever. And so it gets messy, from the guy who, like, hung out with a gang for 6 months because he was trying to, like, get some street cred or whatever, and that was 10 years ago, to somebody who maybe was, like, a hardcore gang member and they're trying to not be. And our society is already, like, really shitty at sort of parsing those things and allowing people to change. But one of the stories that came out last night was that we deported somebody to El Salvador who was granted withholding, which is a form of relief that's included in the asylum application. And withholding is technically harder to win than asylum because you have to show a likelihood of persecution.
If you go back, right. And this is a guy who was who came here because he was being threatened by El Salvadoran gangs. Right.
And right. So the idea that you would win withholding, which means, like, it's more likely than not that you'll be persecuted. And on top of that, the government is unable or unwilling to protect you. And the idea that we would roll somebody up and send them not just back to the country, because, like, if you got sent to El Salvador and you landed at the airport, like, maybe you could hide for a while and, like, escape or, whatever. But to turn that person over to the government that you fear, and then to be placed into, like, a torture camp with the other people that you fear, is shocking. Like, it's totally shocking. And on top of that, the response, I mean, if the response is anything less than, holy shit, we fucked up, we got to get this guy back, that's what really concerns me. Because there's all kinds of people with withholding, and now they're looking at this thinking, we're not safe here.
Let me just ask you a brief question. If you were pursuing some form of legal residence right now as an immigrant, would you continue pursuing legal residency, or are you then putting yourself on ICE's radar?
It's kind of a complicated question, but I think, like, if you have a form of relief available to you, then you should be pursuing it for sure. The alternative is doing nothing and, like,
waiting.
The idea that, like, you're not on their radar already, I think, is usually a delusion. They know where most people are, and the people who think they're hiding usually have given their information to the government in, like, 10 other ways. But it also depends. I mean, there's some ways you can legalize that are maybe risky, or the argument's, a little bit of a stretch, and those are going to be individualized determinations. But I wanted to say one last thing about ICE, and sorry for taking so much time, but, some people are looking at this like they're malicious, and I think they are, but from my experience, and I don't know that this matters, it's like a distinction without a difference, but I think they're malicious in that they don't care about how sloppy and bad they are at their job. From what I've seen, a lot of ICE agents don't know the law that well. They don't take notes. They don't record what they're doing. So we've had, these are like anecdotes, but somebody who was doing check-ins with ICE, and they were granted a visa, so they were allowed to be here. And I called the office. I mailed copies of the approval. The client went in with their work permit, which shows they have a visa, and the officer was like, "That's not a visa, that's just a work permit." Well, it's proof that they were granted a visa, but they don't know the law. And they kept being told they had to continue checking in. So finally I went in person, and I was like, this is the fourth time I've had to bring these documents to you guys. And the officer pulled up the notes. There were no notes. And so, I mean, there's all kinds of critiques of like policing, obviously. We don't have to get into that. But if a cop is like fucking with his breathalyzer, like every case he's ever done gets thrown out. Like there's consequences. He can be dragged before the court, forced to testify under oath. And like, I know they lie and we can get whatever, but there are like real consequences. And for ICE, there's just nothing. Like they don't have to record what they're doing. Even the data sharing within the agency is super shitty. So like you can have a case granted in court. There's an ICE attorney sitting there in court who knows about the withholding. And the local ICE office that does the enforcement, the door kicking and all that shit, they might have no idea.
Right.
Because the attorney in court hasn't left a note.
But also, Reagan, like these ICE prosecutors seem to be complicit in this too. Did you read that Texas Observer story from a few weeks ago about how this Dallas ICE prosecutor literally is behind a white supremacist account on Twitter? I mean, it seems like the entire system it feeds it's a cycle of just like everybody accepting a complete violation of rights, from the prosecutor to the agents to now the administration and probably even the judges in many of these instances.
Well, I love the judges.
I forgot. Yes, sorry.
But just two examples real quick from Seattle, because I work in the Pacific Northwest. There was an ICE prosecutor named Jonathan Love. You can look this up. He got convicted because he went to court. It was like a regular guy. It wasn't like a pedophile he was trying to put away. Not that that would be justified, but like a regular guy trying to apply for release so he could stay in the country with his family. And this guy forged a document saying, oh, no, he's been deported at the border, 8 years ago. So he's ineligible. He's ineligible for relief. It went up on appeal, and finally, like a third attorney reviewed this case and said, hey, this is a DHS document, the removal order, from before DHS existed. So this is clearly a forgery. And sure enough, it was a forgery, and the guy, went to jail, lost his job. But they never did an audit of his work. They never went back to say, like...
You don't think it's likely that was the one time he decided to do it? He was highly motivated in that one case, and he decided to forge that thing?
Well, yeah, trust me. I've had clients try and say that in court that their DUI was the first time they ever drove under the influence, and the judges will immediately roll their eyes and deny their case.
Right.
Because they're clearly lying. Of course it wasn't the first time, but for Jonathan Love, that was enough. And then, last example, and then I'll go, but the chief counsel, the head of the ICE attorneys, this is a few years later, went to jail for 4 years because he was stealing immigrant identities, making fake documents in their name, and taking out credit cards and, opening bank accounts and all this shit in the names of the immigrants he was deporting. He was ordered to pay $190,000 in restitution. And same thing, it got totally swept under the rug. Like, he went to jail, they did their little thing, but no, further investigation or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's just rotten to the core, the whole thing. Other than the ones that, I work with, they're awesome.
Right. All the people in the Pacific Northwest are great, but it's the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan, thanks. Appreciate the call. We're going to clip this and get it out there. Appreciate it. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.